I'll give you a little bit of background why I got involved with UFOs. I'm a native Denverite. I was born about 20 blocks from right here. And back in 1958, I was in the Air Force, and I was assigned to Edwards Air Force Base, and I was also assigned to the flight line as a airborne radio radar technician, working on all the latest, quote, test planes. One day I was out with my Jeep, and I was running out to the X-15. And the X-15 at that time was the craft that came in. It didn't have wheels, it had skids. It went clear out to the north end, and I had to go out and do my post-flight on all the electronic equipment. As I went out there, nothing particular with the craft. It was there. I did my work when I got through, but I looked at my Jeep, and I had about 20 miles on it. And they would take my Jeep away if I did at least 50 miles a day on it. So I just threw my Jeep, put it on automatic, and went on out north. And there are several hangars in the north end of Edwards Air Force Base. The base is 60 by 90 miles long, to give you an idea how big it is. The runway at Edwards is about 22 miles long. It's paved about 5. When I went out there, I ran across a hangar that was open, and inside was a disc-shaped craft. I didn't think anything about it, but I did drive over close and look at it. The only thing that I noticed, and I recall at this time, was that it was a disc-shaped craft, but it didn't have any seams. Everything else I worked on had seams. I didn't think anything about it, went back into the base, and I talked to my buddy who lived in the next room, who was a base photographer, and I says, tell me about the disc-shaped craft up there. I said, I'm working on the X-15. I ought to be able to work on that thing. He says, you know about that? I think you better go in and see the CO. So I went in to see the CO, and the CO gave me this kind of a debriefing. He said, if the public would happen to see it, you are to tell them it's an ion-powered craft designed by Sikorsky that's not flying in our atmosphere, but to be used in outer space. Now, my clearance at that time was top secret, and so I didn't think anything more about it. I'm gung-ho military. I was subsequently transferred, went overseas, and went through the service and went into guided missiles and a lot of other things. Come back out, went to Colorado School of Mines, majored in geophysics, went into business, and I have been a successful real estate developer. So I'm fairly independent at this point and do whatever I want. About 5 years ago, I was building a house for a friend of mine in Aspen, and his maid came in with a book, and the picture on the inside of that thing was almost identical to the craft that I saw at Edwards Air Force Base. I had to get a hold of a copy of that book, and it was written by a couple of people called Lee and Britt Elders in Phoenix. Well, I wrote a couple times, about 3 times, no answer. I just grabbed an airplane and went on down. Went in to see Lee and Britt, and the long and short of it was that they were broke, as typically I find in most of the people involved. And he said, I really can't get you a book, there aren't any more, and this kind of situation. And he said, but what we'd like to do is put out a new book, volume 2, to show more pictures of the Billy Meier thing. Now, I'm mostly a businessman. Phoenix I was going to anyway. I was building office buildings and motels and restaurants down there at the time. So I told Lee, I says, really, it's been about 25 years since I've been out of the service. I don't know why the government hasn't released any of these things, but I'll do my bit. I'll finance your book. You got the money. I said, but one provision, I want my money back. That's all I'm asking, just to share. Well, got the book out. It was very successful. It's called, well, I don't know if it was successful at the time. It's the volume 2 of the picture book of the same thing. You'll see some volume 1s out in the hall. During this period of time, Mr. Elders had taken me to introduce me to a gentleman in Los Angeles. He didn't take me. I went over there, who had spent $750,000 making a movie on this case. So I thought that was all right. The information had to be put out. The movie, to me, would need a little bit of work, and so they needed a little bit more money, and I said, fine, I'll do that too, until I started to see all the legal ramifications. And the next thing I did was call Lee back, and I said, well, I better go check and see how much of this is really true. And so Mr. Elders says, you can't go over there. And I says, what do you mean, me can't go anywhere? So the next plane, I'm in Switzerland. This is the first time I get over and I meet a man who's never heard of me, and I've been putting all the money up for all this stuff, right? And we find out that in the UFO community, per se, we have a lot of people that has, quote, controls. They don't want the information out to the general public. The information that I found out over there was so profound that I thought I should share some myself with you, and subsequently went down and met everybody else, all the principals, as many people as I could, but the real story comes from Billy Meier in Switzerland. Now, what I'm going to show you today are a few of the several hundred slides that Billy has and he's taken. One of the unique things about this particular story is that Billy didn't take all the pictures. He had other people take some of them, had lots of witnesses. The last time I was over there, I was standing outside in the morning. I got up and walked around, and a neighbor farmer come over and he says, started talking to me, and I asked him, I said, have you seen anything out here recently? And he said, well, why don't you come with me? And he come over and showed me a footprint. And a footprint there, that's a big footprint. And he says, there's a man who was 7 meters tall standing here. So I confronted 7 meters, that's 21 feet. Now, he's gone. I ran back in and I talked to Billy. I said, 7-meter tall man out there. And he didn't just shrug his shoulders. He didn't mind at all. Didn't pay any attention to it. Didn't faze him like it was an everyday occurrence. And he says, I was really more concerned about the little people. So Billy brought out a little tiny footprint. Had a plaster cast about this big with all kinds of little footprints about this big. To that, I didn't have any more verification other than the plaster cast of the footprints. Because Billy was going along, unfortunately, or fortunately, taking fairly good notes. Now, how much of that information is Billy's input and how much is it of the ETs? We're kind of deciding at this point what is right. Now, what I'm trying to do is put the information out to the general public and let you decide. So we're in the process of translating the notes from German to English, and then we'll share them with people that are interested in it. There's 2,000 pages of notes. Now, as I go into these slides, and I think I'll get off the stage now and let you look at these things. This is Billy Meier currently. Billy's about a year older than I am, which puts him about 50, 51 right now. This is the man that his entire life has been involved with direct contact with ETs. This particular disc craft is similar to the one that I saw when I was at Edwards Air Force Base. These craft that you're looking, all three of them, are of different sizes. This particular small one is a drone craft. This particular one and this one are both occupied by 2 people. They maintained a base about 30 miles out of Zurich, Switzerland. So if you go over there, it's not too far from it. It's a little town called Hinterschmidt-Rudi. This is some more the craft. What they did was allow Billy, who has one arm, to take pictures, and they posed a lot of the craft. Now, a lot of these pictures were taken with other people present. There were just numerous witnesses to everything that was going on. One of the first things that you want to check at when we were looking for saucers is the indications of what they do when they land physically on the ground. Now, the next couple of slides are going to show you that when they hit the ground first, this is particularly the area in the ground. This is a few weeks later, a week later that happens. There's a swirling motion of some kind. And I talked to the people over there. All kinds of bees and bugs and everything else show up on it. But it does leave some kind of residue. And I didn't have equipment to look at. In fact, I didn't see any of these over there myself. I'm just looking at the pictures. I did talk to other people that had spent a lot of time with and taken soil samples. Now, this is what happens to the ground after they're gone. Now, this right here is Billy before he has his beard. And he's sitting there measuring this particular depression that was left into the ground of the craft. Now, the next slide is going to show, I think. That's Billy with a beard. It's another ongoing deal. There's 3 circular patterns are going on, which gives you an indication there must be 3 driving powers at that point. All with this circular motion. Now, this is an interesting picture because you see this round circle. This is where Billy lives. This is his farmhouse. Now, they're not going to land right here unless there's a lot of other people there, right? Within the farmhouse, there are about 7 people, and they're all kind of like you are. If you've got something that's really secret and your neighbor's going to go over, you're not going to say a lot about it because you can't explain it. But a lot of them have seen the landings, and everything that's gone on. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you some spectacular pictures where the craft is landing right there. What I wanted to show you on this particular one, this is an honest-to-goodness ray gun. It's a laser-powered pistol. You see it right here? This is also the girl that's running this. That's as much as she would allow to be photographed. And that's the latest in outfits now, whatever it is, 5,000 years from now, so get a load of the color. One of the problems that we identified with this thing, and we're talking about a problem, that we looked at it, if you take a look at the nozzle end of it, it's almost the same color as the fence. Doesn't mean anything, because I went over subsequently and saw the results of these crazy deals. Now you see that hole? That's through this tree, which is about 15 inches. It's perfectly round, and you can see how the burn marks are around it. Okay, now there's another picture of the ray gun, and all you're seeing now is just the, I call it just their laser gun.
She's an extraterrestrial?
Yeah, she is an extraterrestrial. She's approximately, according to the information they say, they're about 5,000 years ahead of us technologically. See the craft? See the, I mean, you're getting a close-up. The latest variation that they have of this, because they're continually evolving their own, is about the size of a cigarette pack now. And they use that as a defensive weapon only. They go to a lot of planets, they quote, that are on various stages of evolution. Now we're back here to this tree with the same hole in it. Now this tree is about 24 inches across. Same hole. Now these holes are done just because they were just pointing them out like this. Billy was playing and he was with Semyasa, which is the girl, and I'll show you her picture in a minute. But it was basically having a little bit of fun with it and shooting 30 feet up in the air. This is a little close-up that I could take. Interesting. Okay. This is probably the most famous picture that we have, and this is a VW microbus. That's a little trailer behind it. This is a car. We have a moving picture with the car running right along behind it, and this is your craft. Now everybody that wants this picture, I have several of them over here on the desk that you can have. It has our address on it, so if you're interested in receiving the notes a little later, we'll be glad to send them to you. You can just write to it. But I have this picture for everybody that wants one. This is the same craft, and that you saw there that was above it. It's sitting next to a tree. According to the Palladians, and this is where they claim to be coming from, that they come next to trees because of they work on they have two pulses or propulsion that they use. The first one they use basically on the magnetic resonance of the earth, and the tree appears to ground their craft so it keeps it from wobbling. So they come next to a tree. You'll see a lot of pictures that I have of them next to trees so that it's perfectly still. Pretty close-up pictures. How's that? And close to the ground. Call their crafts beam ships. They ride the magnetic beams through the universe. But the new ones, this craft right here, has a new technology which they developed, and they still kept the name beam ship, but it does work on a new drive called tachyon drive, and they do, their planet supposedly is 350 light years away, and they do it in about 5 minutes now. It used to be 8 hours of travel.
Yeah, it used to be 8 hours.
Used to be 8 hours of travel, and it's about 5 minutes at this point. Okay. I've seen a closer picture of the craft on the ground. This is in front of his house. This is a two-man craft. Remember, the other one you saw up there was bigger. They have all kinds of sizes. I didn't bring some of the slides along. I have some pictures where they had maintained what they call a mothership on the other side of the moon just to keep it away from things. The little balls in them appear to have what they use in creating this magnetic wave. Now, we have this on tape so you can listen to the magnetic wave, the frequencies vibrating. But they create a magnetic disturbance. It's on a vertical axis. We do know that much about it. They wouldn't give us all the propulsion. But it's running on a vertical axis that goes on up for around in our Earth's atmosphere. Now, a good friend of mine took these pictures and examined them very carefully. And his name is Wally Gellerman. He won the special effects for 2001 Academy Award. And Wally said, we were talking about making a movie. And he said, well, I could do that, but it cost about another $350,000 to $400,000 in special effects to make it done. He says, but a one-armed guy in Switzerland with no technology is not going to do this. That's just another horizon picture with the craft up above. Here's a disc-shaped craft again. This is the earlier variations, if you want to call it variation 1 or 2, whatever model is. Again, next to a tree, so you can get an idea. Billy lives in a beautiful part of Switzerland. Billy would set down a tripod, and he would put his movie camera on. This particular photograph is of another variation of the craft that has gold around the side of everything else. I don't have the one. It shows a French Mirage fighter that made about 20 passes against the craft, burned out all the electronic equipment on it and everything else.
On the craft or on the fighter?
On the fighter. Oh, not on that. What they tell us is they don't care about anything. They put a force field around the craft so that if you would shoot a missile or a bullet or anything else at them, it would automatically deflect it or go on with someplace else or come back at twice the amount. It doesn't bother them. They have to have that to go through space, because there's a lot of particles in space. There's the same craft. Is the fighter up there? I can't see. There's the fighter up there. Same craft. This is over a town now, so you imagine there's a lot of people that see these things, and you're going to say, I don't see them. Now, these are close pictures. Okay, now there's Billy aiming the camera up there so you can see it. Now we're coming up from the unusual ones. Billy is being visited by a lot of ETs. What they tell us, when I was asking him about over there, and it appears in the notes, everybody's brain works like a liquid crystal, like a little vibration. And that we're all putting out waves, like if you're walking down the room, automatically you're picking up somebody else's thought, or you can feel them behind it. Anyway, you're emanating these waves throughout the universe. Everybody is. And it has its own, what they call a mind card, its own frequency. Everybody's on their own. And they tune into it, they being whatever our extraterrestrial visitors are. They appear to be coming from all different types of physical dimensions as well as other physical dimensions, non-physical. This particular light, which is referred to in a lot of places throughout the world as this was right over outside of Billy's window, he was taking this one. This is a craft that was coming from the non-physical, in other words, into electrical energy, down, condensing into matter, because they go at such a speed, they convert matter into some type of an energy and transfer it from one place to another. There's that same energy at night. It was so bright. Here's his house again. This is his barn. All the little vehicles sitting around that they run around with. It never did condense into physical matter. So what they say is, and we all look at it, matter goes back to light and back to energy again. So what they have done is come down to light, could not fine-tune their instruments to bring it down into the physical dimension. There it is. That's another one of the craft and light. This, to me, is one of the most incredible pictures that we have. This picture was taken by Billy's friend, who's from Austria, was over there. And Billy was standing outside. Remember those lights? If you look at this thing, this is Billy with his hand up in the air, and these are the sparks and light around him. Now, I don't understand the energy that's involved in doing that, but that is a localized energy. It's totally surrounding Billy, because there's his 2 feet. You see his arms up in the air. It's happening in his backyard. He has 3 children, his wife, and about 6 women around there doing he's got a real good deal. Okay. This is just another picture. There's a wood pile here, and then the craft up on the side of the hill. This picture was on the front of some of the Palladian books. Now, this is the only picture that Semjase would allow with just a drawing of her, because she is walking among us. She doesn't want to be recognized at this point. What they say, and then this is if you're coming back into some of the information, Billy has a mission. His mission was to have the most, what they say, the most and the best of pictures in anybody in the world, which I feel he has. The second thing that he has was to give what they call the spiritual information. And that's another story. It gets really into some heavy information that would change things a little bit. Not really, but it gives a different perspective on the creation. They call God, quote, the creator or the creation of all things, and it goes throughout the whole universe, and just because somebody's black, white, green, or whatever color, we're all created by the same creation, and that's what they look at. They cannot, they being the Palladians, understand our religious system. They were working within the structure trying to help people like Jesus, if you want to look at it that way. The real name was Emmanuel, according to them. Disseminate the information that we are all part of God as such, rather than separating it. That's part of his message, and Billy took on the task of telling the world that here I am, I've got contact, they don't want to talk to you because of something in his crystal that he's sending out, and he's being visited by all kinds of people. Like I said, when I was over there, that man that was 7 meters tall, I was out taking pictures, and when I took those pictures of the trees, now these two are the closest they're going to let us have to the real picture. Those were taken inside a craft, wow. But that's all they'd allow. No, that's how old are they? About 300 of our years, the equivalent of about 27. They go to school for 100 years. And they learn each language. They're walking through us throughout all of the different cultures that we have, and that's the way they treat us, different cultures. And they're observing, watching with us. They feel that we're going to commit hara-kiri and blow ourselves apart, and they don't want this to happen because we're treading ground in their backyards, what they say.